All right, we're live. Hey, everybody. This is Leonard for the Ultimate Growth Experience podcast. So today, for episode 13, I have my great friend from Canada, Ben Jones. So let me go through the list of what he's doing right now. So he's the current executive director at Innovation and Entrepreneurship Exchanges. He's currently the CEO of Ben Jones Consulting. He was an innovation analyst for RBC Bank in Canada, chief business development officer for LearnSpot, and current company program mentor for JA Canada. He has also received a number of awards, including the Justice Gloria Epstein Award for Outstanding Advocacy and the Ontario Scholarship Award. And Ben is an aspiring entrepreneur and a young lad with great potential. And he's only 18, guys. Holy crap. Ben, welcome to the Ultimate Growth Experience podcast.
Thank you very much, Leonard. It's great to be here.
Yeah, great to be with you. So we connected through LinkedIn, and he was happy to come on. So at the tender age of 18 already, mate, you are already doing great things. So you're hyperactive on LinkedIn and with great credentials already. So what motivates you to work this hard?
Yeah, I think there's a few things for me, and it's not like I sort of just woke up one day and magically decided that, today's the day I'm gonna decide that I want to work hard and sort of do whatever. It's been a process. For me, it's sort of it's a few things. It's through some of the books that I've read. It's through some of the experiences that I've been able to have. It's through the people I've been able to meet. But it made me realize through all of that I have so much that I can offer the world, that in a way it's kind of like I'm stealing from the world if I decide that I don't, want to put in the effort and I don't want to do things, because there's value that I can give to other people out there. There's an impact that I can make. There's a difference that I can, impart. Why would I not do that? Why would I be sort of selfish and keep that to myself? And the more selfish reason why I do so much is I get bored really easily. So if I'm not, constantly going out there and doing things, I just get bored. So, I like being able to go out and do things and help people at the same time. And so that's kind of what keeps motivating me. And I know that I have a purpose that sort of extends far beyond myself. And that keeps me going day in, day out.
I mean, is there a particular philosophy that you're trying to follow? Is it like Elon Musk, where he's trying to save humanity, or is it more of a just incremental change for the world, like one by one, in terms of what you could do as an individual?
Yeah, I'm probably a lot more of an incremental change type of person, at least where I am
Oh, same as
at
me.
in my life currently. Yeah, Elon Musk is, a phenomenal individual, and he is one of a kind. So that's part of the reason I don't say I'm trying to replicate him, because he's off doing what he's doing, and I'm trying to do what I know I'm capable of and what I have to offer to the world. And so for me, my philosophy is, what am I able to do? And let's go and do it. What are some problems in the world that I can solve? Let's go solve them. And no matter what happens, you might fail a few times along your journey. But the great part about life is that unless you're dead, you always have a chance to try again. So just trying to do something and trying to make an impact. That's kind of my philosophy.
And what sort of impact in terms of entrepreneurship are you trying to create? So you're already
Yeah.
heavily involved in consulting.
Yeah.
What was the main charge?
So for me, and at least with my work with innovation and entrepreneurship exchanges, what I'm really trying to do is get younger people involved with entrepreneurship and develop entrepreneurial skills and help them develop their own entrepreneurial mindsets as well. I think it's really important that young people have a chance and an opportunity to develop those entrepreneurial mindsets. And I believe that for a few reasons. I think one, the world is changing so rapidly that if we don't try to develop these entrepreneurial skill sets in people, they're just not going to be able to live in whatever the world's going to look like in 5, 10, 20 years, right?
Hmm.
The pace of change is so incredibly fast. The other reason I want to try and teach young people entrepreneurial skill sets is because everywhere I look around me, people, my age, older, younger, they all sort of have the set vision in mind of what their life can be, and in a way it's sad because you know that there's so much potential and so much opportunity, but they've already set their expectations much lower than what I think they're capable of. And I think the beauty of entrepreneurship is that we can give them a chance to be able to achieve what they're truly capable of, and in turn that value that they're creating for themselves is also a value that they're going to create for society as a whole. So that's what I'm really trying to do with entrepreneurship. I think it's a ticket to solving a lot of ills that we have in the world.
Well, that like they say, man, prepare to fail or fail to prepare. And
Exactly.
we're
Yep.
living in
Yep.
a great era of drastic change in terms of artificial intelligence, technological shocks.
Yeah,
And so you
absolutely.
have to get as many people who are active in this as possible. So
Hmm.
fantastic start. What are your micro habits and daily routine like? Is it quite structured, like most of my guests?
Um, Yes and no. Some days are very, very structured, and then what I'll do is every now and again I'll leave a day where I'll deliberately leave it to be unstructured because I think there's some benefit to having unstructured time to, really work on an activity that might not necessarily have been as urgent or high priority, but it's still important. So how I kind of divide my time is if you ever had a chance to read The Seven Habits of Highly Successful People, one of the sort of ways of scheduling your time is you have tasks that are urgent and important, and these kind of draw our attention away. And so when I have my scheduled days and most of my weekdays, I have my classes, I have business things I need to do, I have volunteering that I do, so they're very structured and routine. um, Whereas for the weekends, I'll deliberately leave those as days to focus on things that are really important and beneficial towards sort of my long-term growth, but don't necessarily fit in neatly to your sort of hour by hour schedule. In terms of like specific routines or habits I do, I always try to read sometime during the day. I find reading a book is just a great way to connect with what you're trying to do and just sort of get a broader perspective of what's happening. I also like going for walks. So just taking, half an hour or some time. Not only is it, good to get out and get some exercise, but just give your mind some space to be clear and think about what's happening, think about what you want to get done. So those are some of the things I sort of do on a daily basis just to help, keep pushing me forward.
And have mental clarity as well, isn't it?
Exactly, which I think
Uh,
is really important, especially when you're dealing with totally complex stuff, and especially with innovation and entrepreneurship exchanges, we're heading into more or less uncharted territory. So it's just good to make sure that you have a sound mind. Otherwise, you can go a little bit crazy.
and we need all the wisdom and the knowledge from the past as possible, right? And I mean, you
Yeah,
just already
absolutely.
mentioned, Stephen Covey's book. I mean, even
Yep.
now, till this day in the 21st century, so many entrepreneurs are still reading that. So,
Well, yeah, and I think it's a really good and a really helpful book too. Little that's the thing about reading too is you never know when you'll find sort of a tidbit of information that's useful or helpful to you.
mm. When did you start reading books? Was it when you were like 15, 16, or when you were like even younger
Yeah,
than that?
that was sort of when I mean, I've always had a passion for nonfiction books. So when I was really young, I kind of like reading, history type books or basically just books of facts, more or less. I was never really into novels, that type of thing. I'd even read the newspaper back when newspapers were still kind of a thing. So I've always had a passion for reading, and then I've just started to try and target my reading a little bit more, starting around 16. And I think the first big book that started shifting how I really thought about, my potential in life was How to Win Friends and Influence People by Dale Carnegie,
Mhm.
which is a very good book. But yeah, I've always had a passion for reading. A lot of teachers never thought I did because I wouldn't read what they necessarily said you should read, right? I would go out and read totally random things. But I think as long as you're reading something that's informative, you never know when it will come in handy.
Mm. I mean, Warren Buffett reads like 5 hours a day. Bill Gates
Yeah.
one book per week. Mark Cuban. It's endless,
No, it's
man.
it's it's the common thread, right? It's the common thread. I've yet to see someone who said, you know what, I should have spent less time reading. I should have spent less time learning. I've yet to hear someone say that.
And nobody in my friend circle who are already getting up that hierarchy are saying the same thing. They're all saying,
Yeah,
read. Just go out
yeah,
and read,
exactly.
man.
Yep.
Totally, man. So tell us specifically about your business innovation and entrepreneurship
Yep.
exchanges.
For sure. So what Innovation and Entrepreneurship Exchanges is we're a 4-week exchange program where the students will spend 2 weeks in Toronto, Canada, 2 weeks in Auckland. While they're there, they work with local companies on a whole variety of different challenges. So they go in a business challenge. They have to dissect the challenge, figure out a solution to it, throw that together, present it to the company. They get real life feedback from the people at the organization who have the potential and power to implement these solutions. So it's getting students like real life business experience, but at the same time, they're also making these connections within the business community. Throughout the program as well, we bring in, speakers, successful and unsuccessful entrepreneurs, just to share their experiences and their advice to students, and to give them some perspective so that when they finish the program and they finish their 4 weeks, they have an opportunity to start their own company, and they have some sort of advice and guidance that we provided. And they also have the benefit of our network, and the expertise of our network to help them if they decide that they want to start their own business.
And you started this all on your own?
Yeah, pretty much. There's been a lot of help on the way, from a lot of people, but the idea to start it and like day to day, it largely does rest on my shoulders. So yeah.
I don't think a 24-year would have come up with that, if I'm honest.
Yeah, well, maybe because they wouldn't be crazy enough, but yeah, it is what it is. And I think as long as it takes off the ground, I think the potential for where it can go is pretty endless. And so far, like, the feedback's been good. We have students who are very interested. Just the one big obstacle that we're encountering is parents. Obviously, when it's the first time you're running this type of program, they tend to be a little bit apprehensive, which is understandable. But it's been a great experience so far for me, because I've learned so much about what entrepreneurship is really like. It's not somebody sitting in a Lamborghini throwing, wads of $100 bills out their car, whatnot. That's not what entrepreneurship is. It's sort of the day in, day out grind, building something that's actually going to make a serious impact on people. But yeah, that's a little bit more about innovation and entrepreneurship exchanges for you.
And I'll leave the description. I'll leave the information about innovation and entrepreneurship exchanges in the link in the description below.
Yeah, perfect.
So, do you have any entrepreneurial heroes you look up to, bro? Besides our beloved friend Elon Musk.
Yeah, no, I mean, that's a great question. When I sort of look at entrepreneurs or people that I think have really good stories, I like to try and get a whole cross section of entrepreneurial figures to look up to, because I think what people miss in entrepreneurship is they often get too caught up in the Elon Musks or the Mark Zuckerbergs or whatever of the world, right? Whereas entrepreneurs exist sort of all different levels along the ladder. So there are people like Richard Branson, who I look up to, and my aspiration one day is to basically own a bunch of different companies doing a bunch of different things. Always be busy and always be doing something new, cool, and interesting. But I also look up to people I know around me who are doing entrepreneurial things and who are taking those risks in their own life. Because for me, what makes entrepreneurship special isn't the one or two people who are able to make it to the top. It's the fact that it gives so many more people the opportunity to try and to be passionate about something and to figure out who they are, what they're passionate about, and what they want to achieve. So it's not really a sexy answer to this question, but my sort of hero is anyone who's really seriously works hard at their entrepreneurial dream. Those are the people who I look up to.
Would you say that everybody should become an entrepreneur, or is it just for a minority of people? Why?
So I mean, it's kind of ironic, because some people might get the impression I advocate for that based on the content I throw out there on my LinkedIn, especially, or just the programs I'm running. But I don't think entrepreneurship is for everyone. But I also think that's okay. I think it takes a special set of skills. You have to be willing to fail, and you also have to know what failure, and really painful failure, actually looks like and feels like if you're going to be a successful entrepreneur. On top of that, you also need to be able to coordinate a whole bunch of different aspects that go into a business. You need to do everything from having really painful calls with a customer, having to send out cold messages to people, or reach out cold to a podcast host to try and get on his show. You have to be willing to do that. You have to basically be your own lawyer in some cases. You have to do all your own bookkeeping. You have to do, there's so many different skill sets, and you have to be willing to take on a lot of risk. It's not for everyone, but that's okay. You can still do extraordinary things without trying to go out there and start the next Tesla. So what I advocate for is for everyone to be entrepreneurial, and to be willing to, take those risks and try to push their own boundaries. But I don't think everyone necessarily should be a full-time entrepreneur, if that makes any sense.
That does make sense. You're essentially telling people that you should try to overcome your adversities. You should try to constantly change and innovate on an individual basis. But on a company basis, not a lot of people are going to be willing to get out of that 9 to 5 mindset. Isn't that what you're trying to tell people? Yeah.
Yep. And I mean, there's also cases where it's, hard to start a business. I get that. I'm not recommending that if you're trying to support, multiple children at home, you throw everything away and you quit your job. But you absolutely hit the nail on it, though. I'm encouraging everyone, though, to figure out what you can do personally to improve yourself. Because that, I think, is something you can control. Trying to go out and start a company or ditch the 9 to 5 is a much, much bigger leap, and one that excuse my words there, but one that very few people are able to successfully complete.
Yeah, but I think that mindset about what you just mentioned there, it's something that a lot of people are forgetting in our world today. Because, particularly, our generation, because, I consider myself part of just between the millennial generation and, Generation Z, where a lot of our friends and colleagues around the world are just complacent. Like, we all have this, we have, bloody hell, I'm talking to you all the way from New Zealand and you're in Toronto, Canada. How wonderful, an amazing era that we're living in,
Yeah. No, it's amazing. And I totally agree with you. I think, millennials get this more reputationally than Generation Z does, for sure. But I find, just among peers, there's so many smart kids and they're talented and they're bright and they have so much potential and ambition, but what they're going out to do is they're like, I'm going to join club XYZ and do everything that they tell me I have to do because that's the only way that I can go and get this job. And it's so sad for me because I'm like, you have the potential to do so much more. Why are you cutting yourself off? Like, you don't have to do what everyone else is doing. You always have a choice. It's just you've chosen to take the path that everyone else is taking. And guess what? That path is very crowded. So you have to be really freaking incredible to be able to make it down that path. Whereas if you're an entrepreneur, you don't have to be incredible, but if you're willing to put in the work and effort and have the determination, you can still do incredible things. And that, I think, absolutely is what's being forgotten among our generations.
Yeah, I mean, you just reminded me because on your book list, the Law of Human Nature book by Robert Greene, because he says that there's a law of conformity where on a bunch of people go and conform to what others are doing instead of trying to find their individual sort of niche per se.
Yeah.
And you hit the nail on the head as to how a lot of people are, oh, I'm just going to go through the traditional method, whereas instead of trying to find their ultimate purpose within what they should do in their lives and really spend that time to the maximum.
Yeah, absolutely. And it happens so frequently, and it happens really at all levels of society. And part of the reason why I wanted to start innovation and entrepreneurship exchanges for high school students is because I know as soon as they get to university, that's just the prevailing mindset, and it can be very, very hard to break out of that mindset, especially when everybody else around you is doing one thing. It's very hard to be, the pink sheep.
Actually, what you mentioned there, it reminds me of Nassim Taleb's book, The Black Swan.
I've never read that one, actually.
No, me neither. But apparently, it's something about the uniqueness of, because he's the guy that predicted the global financial crisis of 2008. Shit, we're getting quite intellectual here.
That's all right.
Excuse me. Let's go back to the question. Speaking of failures and constantly taking risks, did you have a low point in your life so far, even though you're 18?
Yeah, no, I'll talk about it. So, if you go through my LinkedIn, you'll see that position I had at a company called LearnSpot. And that was my first really sort of painful business failure, business disaster, really, if I'm being perfectly honest. So it started out as a tutoring business. And our goal was to be like, basically a marketplace for tutors. You'd come to the website. you'd find a tutor you need. And, if you need a tutor in maths, so you need a tutor in history or English or, biology, chemistry, whatever it is, you come to the website. And the tutors would list their credentials, their price, and you would sort of select who you want, and away you go. We'd get a small cut of every transaction. It would be all, handy, all lovely and whatnot. It did not work out. There were like constant delays in the process. And I mean, I can go in to the gritty if you want, but what I'll say is it ended really badly. And it basically ended in a fight between myself and a couple of my friends and the original founders, who ironically had brought me on later into the organization. Because I said, look, I've invested, a lot of my time and some of my money in this, and it's gone nowhere. And I don't feel like I'm really being represented or heard. So we basically had a nasty fight. I ended up like taking down their web domain so they couldn't actually use the URL they had, because I owned it personally. And it was messy. And I regret the way it ended. That's not how you should end business relationships. But that whole experience taught me a lot of really great and valuable things about getting into business. But it was definitely a low point, because it's like, oh, well, crap. I just wasted a lot of time on something and a lot of unnecessary stress, whereas I could have been going out and doing something else that would have been so much more beneficial for me. So yeah, that was a low point. Looking back on it now, though, it's great, because it's something that I can look back to for lessons on what I should not do in the future. Starting with like, don't have a founding team of 10 people, don't worry about your branding and your whatever before you even have customers. Like, focus on the fundamentals before you focus on the fluff. But yeah, that was definitely a low point for me.
And so out of that experience, shall we
Yep.
say, what was the main lesson besides the points that you mentioned that you learned?
I think the main lesson for me was in terms of like building something that people want and solving a problem that people really have. So probably the reason why we had as many issues as we had was because people weren't really looking for what we were offering. Like, sure, the tutoring market's very fragmented, but people have their ways of doing it, and they're pretty set in that. And the product that we were offering was not going to solve their issues. It was not really going to be able to offer them something that had enough value that they would use us over whatever method they were using before. The other thing, which I think was even bigger and probably the most important, was there was a lack of a shared mission and vision in the organization. And when I was first starting out in business, I always thought mission and vision is kind of something that, you kind of do later on. It's like you get the business set up and then you can talk about whatever once you've got going. But I realized you need these things from the start, because if people don't know what page that you're on as a team, you're not going to get anywhere. And we didn't just know what page we're on. We were in different books. Okay. Like we were in different books. Some people were in different libraries. It was all over the place. And it also meant that certain people wanted way more out of the business than others. Others were almost doing this like a homework assignment for their schools to get certain credits for extracurricular involvement. And then people like myself were like, well, why can't this be a fully fledged business, right? So I think the two things there were build something people want, and also make sure that your team's on the same page, because otherwise you collapse.
Same mission statement, and also, what was the other one?
It was build something people want.
Right, like
Yeah.
consumer-based orientation, more or less.
Yeah.
Brilliant. And so last two questions are, what are your aspirations for the future besides running multiple companies like these?
Yeah. Oh my goodness. I mean, I love to travel. I love to be able to make a difference. So do that through my companies. To be honest, my aspirations are to build out these companies and build them to a point where, I'm able to employ people. I'm able to work with people from around the world. I'm able to make a big difference. I would like to have a company have an IPO one day. That's an aspiration of mine. I've always considered maybe I want to be prime minister one day. These are all very vague thoughts, though. The ones that I know are tangible and concrete are I want to get innovation entrepreneurship exchanges off the ground. I want to be able to grow following on some of my content. And I want to be able to do more consulting work when I can. Those are my concrete goals. Long term, though, you never know. You might be hearing about the Right Honorable Prime Minister Benjamin Jones one day. We don't know. We'll find out.
And you're only 18. That's the point, ladies and gentlemen. The fact that this man is doing all of this at this age is just something that I find just admirable and inspirational. Do you have a social media account or something that my followers can follow you on?
Yeah, I have many. The best one is feel free to send me a connection request on LinkedIn. I'm just Ben Jones. I'm the young looking person. That's where I post most of my good content there. You can also find me on YouTube. I post videos, various topics, anything from business to helping students with their university applications. So check me out there, subscribe. Yeah, those are the best places to reach me, YouTube and LinkedIn. Also, feel free to check out my personal website, benjones.work, or check out some of my business sites as well. Yeah, that's the best way to find me.
And I'll leave all those 3 links in the description below. Ben, thank you so much for joining me today. It's been an honor to have you on the show, man. And
Thank you very
ladies and
much, Leonard.
gentlemen, no, it was a pleasure. All right, thank you, everybody. And I hope you have a good day. Cheers.